What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Power Play with CJ. I was just thinking earlier today about what the New Jersey Devils can do to help, prepare for the days after Marty Brodeur. And as a New England Patriots fan, it's kind of like thinking about the days after Tom Brady's gone. They're both great athletes that are, not going to play forever. And I think Brodeur's expiration will come before Brady's does, and both two of the greatest of all time to play their respective positions in their respective sports. But I was just thinking about how another French-Canadian goalie that's on the market this year. I wouldn't draft a goalie this year with that pressure. I'd look for a guy that's moderately established and still pretty young. And I think the best player to do that is Jonathan Bernier. Be 25. He is 25 years old. Be an RFA this year. LA is gonna have to move him. He's been a valuable trade chip the last couple of years. And I think in terms of getting something back for him, I'd send him Stefan Matteau and probably a second-round pick. Back to the Kings. I mean, you look at from the Devils' perspective, he sits behind Brodeur for a year, then takes over, and then from the Kings' perspective, they get some cap room, and then they get a prospect within Matteau that's already played 15 games in the NHL. Obviously, we know his weaknesses. I've talked about them ad nauseum in terms of his poor attitude and at times questionable work ethic. But I'd tell him point blank, you're going to start the year in Manchester. You play well, you come up. If there's any more attitude problems, you go back to the queue. Before you say, but he's kicked off his team. Rimouski traded for his rights, so he could play for Rimouski. And I mean, they got a pretty good team with Gauthier and Moran, guys like that. But I think honestly, a trade centered around Bernier and Matteau would be pretty good. You look at what Matteau can do. I mean, LA's got a pretty subpar farm system. I love Toffoli's game. I like Tanner Pearson, but I think. You get a guy like Matteau, he can, let him develop at the right rate. I don't think he should win the NHL this year for 15 games. And the other thing is, from LA's perspective, if he's in the AHL or the Q, it doesn't count as a year in his contract unless he plays 10 games in the show. And like I said, LA is going to have some tough cap decisions to make. And I mean, who knows, maybe Matteau takes over for Penner, becomes maybe like a better version of Dustin Penner, something like that. But I think that's something you got to be creative if you're a GM, and in terms of establishing market value and stuff like that. What is the market value for Bernier? I don't think he's played 100 games in the NHL. You look at Tampa. I don't want to say they got burned in the Lindback deal because there's still plenty of time for Lindback to become a pretty good goalie and Tampa, him to be established as a cornerstone of Tampa. But that doesn't look too good. The early returns on it now. The lockout, the shortened camp, and everything. It's tough to judge a goalie on that. But still, you expect better results from a guy like that you gave up a lot for. And, if I'm the Devils, I think, what you got with Matteau. He's got some problems. I don't think he's going to be a long-term member of the New Jersey Devils organization. I think he'll be traded sooner rather than later. And if I'm, Dean Lombardi, I sit him down and say, look, kid, you're on your second NHL team. You're 19 years old. You're a first-round pick. You were kicked off your Q team where your dad was a head coach, or you quit in so many words. Depending upon who you actually kicked off or you quit. You've got a ton of potential here. You can make a lot of money in the NHL. You got to get your head straight. Even if I was Lou Lamoriello, I'd read him the same riot act and say, look, you got a lot of potential, kid. You can make it. Be an impact player in this league for a real long time. Do you want to do that, or do you want to be an idiot that takes stupid penalties and is not on the ice in crunch time? There's a reason he was drafted in the first round. For all his faults, he's still a hell of a hockey player and a hell of a developing prospect. And we'll see what he does long term. I'm rooting for him. I love the game. I think if he can cut out the BS, it'd be a good return for LA. And I think Bernier would be a hell of a fit in New Jersey long term. Anyway, that's on this episode of The Power Play with CJ and my thoughts on a possible trade centered around Stefan Matteau and Jonathan Bernier. Stay tuned for more episodes throughout the playoffs and beyond. Later, guys.